Hello and welcome to The Life You're Made For. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Pinney. Often our world feels reactive, confusing, and chaotic. On this show, we're going to slow down together. Take a breath, listen, and learn. We'll be joined in conversations with influential thinkers who will help us make new connections, understand our unique potential, check the beliefs we hold, and learn how to overcome unexpected challenges. I know that each and every one of us holds our own inner clarity, confidence, and courage, what I call 3C living and leading. So let's go after it together. I'm cheering you on. Hello, everyone. I am so glad to have our guest today, Leigh Burgess, and she is just an amazing force of nature out there. I got to read her bio, and I was excited to have her on the show because of my tagline of clarity, confidence, courage. She focuses on boldness, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more of who she is and what she does. Leigh, welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Good. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are, and then we're going to jump into the conversation.
Sure. So I'm the CEO of Bold Industries Group, my company that I formed after really realizing I had burnout and quitting my job without having a job. So I took a big swing of Bold and started my company in middle of 2020, which was a gnarly year for the world.
Very bold.
And yeah, that was bold, bold and necessary. I was talking to someone earlier today and like said, basically you imploded. And I was like, yeah, that's a nice way to say it. So I got to that point where I needed to make that change. And then really things for me just started to open up and I could be whatever I wanted to be and think about things very differently than I had for the last 30 years. You know, since I was 18, I probably didn't think, oh, I could be anything. And so at 48, I was, oh, I could be anything. And so it was an opportunity for me to do that and started to build my company over several months because I had to actually heal from being burnt out. I didn't jump straight back into the fire, but started to build my business along with healing and think about what I could do. And then kicked off consulting and then coaching. And then I have several events that I do, the Bold Table and the Bold Retreat and my own podcast that I started in 22. And then ultimately now year 4, just kind of work through those things and created a membership and I'm writing a book. So it sounds easy when you say it like that, but it's been anything but that.
Oh yeah.
I think being an entrepreneur and doing that transition from corporate to entrepreneurial life is certainly a transition in itself.
Yeah, you definitely develop the skill set that I'm sure you learn on the technical side of the industry. But to move into the entrepreneur work, man, that's dealing with some inner mindset and personal self-talk and inner critic and all these things that can kind of come out of the woodwork that kind of creep in and haunt us, doesn't it?
Yeah, I never had imposter syndrome until I became an entrepreneur, which is so interesting.
Yeah.
I really didn't struggle with that a bunch in the corporate world. But I always, respected people having that experience, but I definitely got it when I became an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I think you really do go through some mind cycles of like, is this the right thing? Am I doing enough? Do I know what I'm doing? You may go through that like 100 times a day, depends. And even in year 4, you feel like that. So I think any entrepreneur potentially, maybe there's times that they're feeling like they have it all together, but I haven't talked to all of them, but I think many of us, are out there doing the best that we can and trusting ourselves, which I think is a big part of being an entrepreneur too, is trusting and believing in yourself is so, so important.
Yeah. And you've worked in the corporate spaces as have I. And I think that's also, even if you're not owning your own company, there's an entrepreneurial spirit that many of us live with that
Yeah,
we
probably
still.
where I got in trouble.
Yeah, that's where we all did. We all got in trouble there, which is why we probably ended up opening our own companies.
That's why we're entrepreneurs, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got kicked out of the club.
Yeah, we like colored outside the lines a little too much, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah, and then of course, learning how to just hold that tension of staying true to who you are, but also meeting the world's need. I mean, that's just a constant tension we're holding as entrepreneurs and really honoring the feedback that we need to hear, but also staying true to what I know I have the best to offer.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think I want to go there. The first book I wrote is The Life You're Made For, and that's the name of this show, The Life You're Made For. And so I'm always curious how people stepped into the life they're made for. And I like to invite people on my show because there's usually this moment of awakening where we go, I don't think I want to do this anymore, or I think I'm made for more. Can you tell us a little bit about that moment in your history? And you mentioned burnout. Give us a little idea of some of the signs of burnout for you.
Yeah, so I did. I just let those warning signs and flashing lights just keep on going. Maybe unplugged it a couple times, like, "Oh, okay, it'll get better."
Took the
That alarm,
batteries out.
yeah, took the batteries out. That alarm will stop going off.
Yeah.
I think I missed a lot of the signs, so
Mm,
I think for me, I was just in a go, go, go moment, and maybe if I work harder and
mm,
more, that will fix everything or make everything better, or I'll feel better. And then nothing
mhm,
did, right? So
mhm,
I tried to really avoid probably the change I needed to make
mhm,
by actually working harder.
mm,
And I got a lot of things done, but at the
mhm,
cost of my health. So, like, my health was not good. I gained a lot of weight, wasn't moving.
mhm.
I wasn't sleeping. So, 2 hours a night was easy what I was doing on a
Oh my
regular
goodness.
basis
Mm,
on the computer, like, just not healthy habits when it came to
mhm,
my health, eating and moving. So, that was
mhm,
a big sign. I was reactive and not myself. And
mm,
so, where I would more normally just kind of be more chill or
mhm,
sit back and listen. I was more like reactive and I could feel myself not being myself, but I was just like, well,
mm,
it's just the pandemic and we're all stressed out and X, Y, or Z. I was rationalizing a lot of it. So I
mhm.
think I was missing some of those signs. And, I was just so tired. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously sleeping 2 hours,
yeah.
but it was a different level of tired, like the
Mhm.
kind you feel like in the back of your eyes, through your toes. Like it was just really, really
Yeah.
this tired that no matter what I did, no matter what amount of
Mhm.
sleep I got, could fix it. So I think I was having all those signals and signs coming up and I just ignored them all
Yeah.
and just put my head down and worked harder. And now everyone
Mhm.
around me could see it, could notice it.
Mhm.
And when I quit, the one person I was the most nervous to tell was my mom because
Mm.
she wanted me to have a steady job and,
Mhm.
retirement and all that
Mhm.
jazz, insurance. She's worried, like if you
Sure.
don't have one of those types of jobs, how will you make
Mhm.
it? And it's generational.
Mhm.
But she was the one that was the happiest. She said, "You're
Oh.
gonna be so much more healthy." And
Oh,
so
good.
I knew I'd made the right decision there,
Yeah.
from that perspective. I think when I realized I was meant for more or to do
Mhm.
more because I had an incredible job, like the job I was in corporate was in
Mm.
clinical research, running the
Mm.
administration and operations of large teams, making a difference, creating, vaccines, doing incredible things within
Mm.
incredible academic institutions. But so that's a pretty cool job, making a
Yeah.
difference, but it was like, what could I do with my story? And I think
Mm.
that's where I realized that, I was very locked down, didn't share a lot, didn't put myself out there in social media, which is where sometimes you meet people.
Mhm.
And so started to just open up, and that in itself is bold
Mm.
and scary,
Mhm.
because, for example, I had 80 followers when I first started on LinkedIn. I have over 17,000 now. So just
Mm.
kind of growing that and like opening myself up for people to get to know me, know
Mhm.
my story, know where it gets messy, and then know
Mhm.
where I figure out the mess and, keep going. And so
Yeah.
I think when someone tells you they're inspired by you and your story, which I know you've heard that,
Mhm.
it hits, and it's a
Mhm.
responsibility for me, like, I gotta
Mhm.
keep sharing, I gotta keep going, and I gotta keep trying things that might
Mhm.
not always work out. So that for me was kind of, during that
Mm.
time of transition from corporate into my consulting role, people were saying they were inspired by the change I had made.
Mm.
And at the same time, there were people saying, "What in the heck did you do?"
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So it was a combination of those two voices, and I listened more to the ones that said they were being inspired and kept going.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the gift of burnout, isn't it? We already know where the other road leads. And
Yeah,
we
you
just
can't avoid
go,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you go, you know what? I've already sold my soul once where
Mhm.
I totally avoided listening to my all the signs and signals that my mind and body and spirit were all sending off. And
Yeah.
I know where that road leads. And
Yeah.
it's just common for our high achievers in our world.
Yeah, you kinda know you're not in the right place, but you keep trying. At least
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, what do I need to fix about myself? So,
Yeah.
I felt like there was some gaslighting in there of like, "I'm doing a freaking awesome job. Like, how
Yeah.
could this be anything other than
Yeah.
incredible?" And
Yeah.
somehow it's still not good enough. So it was like
Yeah.
some of that, some of it I did to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I take responsibility for, my part in it, but I think, there were just
Mm-hmm.
environments and, the stress of the world and some of the things going on in some of the organizations that I think that can just kind of
Mm-hmm.
exacerbate someone maybe not paying attention to those symptoms. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, high achievers, it's us like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm tough. I can do this. I
Yeah.
can
I
keep
can power
working hard.
through. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it definitely wasn't a power through moment. Like I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
get back to stable. Like I usually
Mm-hmm.
tell my clients, like, it's a good day, it's a good day. Wow, I can do this. And then it tanks. And then you get
Mm-hmm.
back up, it's a good day, it's a good day. And then it goes down. I couldn't get back up to it's a good day. And that's
Yeah.
when I knew, like, I gotta go. Something's gotta give.
Yeah, that's great. And I think we all instinctively know burnout, but for those of us who are used to pushing hard and frankly getting a bit of a high of pushing through and getting it back up, I kind of
Sure,
think
it's
of it as a,
adrenaline.
yeah,
Right.
I think of it as this gas tank, So we're like, oh, we know how to get it back up. We know how to get it back up. But burnout really is that true feeling of I can't get it past empty. I
Yeah.
am literally running on fumes and I can't seem to fill up anymore.
Hmm.
That's when we're ready for something else that's different. And I guess, and you mentioned healing, so I guess I want to go there.
Yeah.
What was some of that, something that was different and it was almost counterintuitive? I mean, what I heard you say that your belief was, I got to push harder, got to do more. I call those false beliefs because they're no
Yeah.
longer working for us
Yeah.
anymore. They're limiting us. And
Yeah.
I guess I want to know what was the new belief you kind of replaced it with? Maybe it was conscious or subconscious, or even in hindsight, you're getting your clarity. But what'd you replace it with that it was probably counterintuitive to anything else you'd ever done?
Yeah, I actually had to slow down.
Yeah.
And for me, that was getting to know myself, reevaluating what were my
Mm-hmm.
values and was I actually living them?
Mm-hmm.
Family and friends and my school and the things that I do, or if those are things that are important to me and those are part of my
Mm-hmm.
values, then am I really living it? Or am I
Mm-hmm.
just kind of, this hybrid,
Mm-hmm.
values person? So I think there
Mm-hmm.
was that piece of it. And then I really had to, my mind, like, because of like the world I was in, the
Mm-hmm.
intenseness, the stress, the stakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's human clinical research. There's high stakes if you
Mm-hmm.
make an error. And so I think I had to like bring my mind level down to just getting back to what I call the stable state of like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to always be in this high readiness, go, go, go
Mm-hmm.
mode. And that was a very different mode for me to be in because I had been in it 15 years straight
Oh my
and
goodness.
in that type of senior
Mm-hmm.
level role. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like it was overnight. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew I couldn't just jump back in. And at one point, I didn't even know if I'd go back into healthcare. I thought
Mm-hmm.
healthcare was the problem. And,
Mm-hmm. It's
I
always
was like,
nice to blame it on something else, isn't it? Not really
right?
deal with our inner work.
Yeah. Yeah. At one point I like as in my career, like I left healthcare and went to education, K through 12 ed. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going into education because there's no politics in education.
Oh, that's a
And
joke.
that's a joke. There's politics and everything. So where did I end up? I ended up working in academic medicine. And so
Yeah.
like,
Oh, that's funny.
there's a lot of politics in a lot of organizations. And so it's not something
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get away from, but I thought that was
Right.
kind of funny,
Yeah.
ignorance that I had when I was young.
Yeah.
So I think, for me, it was just really kind of working through that slowdown. But
Mm-hmm.
what was so fascinating for me and really part of the fun was being creative. And it was
Yeah.
like I could be creative and like no one limiting it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's a little dangerous for a creative person and an entrepreneur because
Mm-hmm.
every idea you have is not a good one. And you can't act on every idea.
It's
But
brilliant at
just
3 a.m. though, isn't it?
right. Yeah. So shower notes. I even had them,
Yeah.
aqua notes.
Yeah.
So like I just had this, it felt like parts of my brain actually opened up again and I could
Mm-hmm.
think out loud and I could think about things and not have anybody crush it right away.
Yeah.
And I think that was nice too for me in the sense of a healing process. It was like my ideas were good ideas
Mm-hmm.
and I could take them from idea to implementation
Mm-hmm.
without anybody getting approval, without any signatures, without
Yeah.
anybody saying, here's your budget.
Yeah.
But that also comes with a responsibility too. So I
Yeah.
think, but it was a different way to get things done for sure.
Yeah. Well, and what you're talking about too, and I think we're all familiar with this, but I just want to capture it a little bit. We have this thrive, survive or thrive kind of mentality, and we don't realize we have the capability to nurture or foster either one.
Hmm.
And so when we're fostering that survive mentality, it's fight or flight, fight or flight, fight or fight, fight or flight. So we're keeping our adrenaline, our central nervous system really jacked up, which is
Hmm.
also connected to lack of sleep, 2 hours of sleep a night. When you said that, I go, oh, wow, your brain was working hard. You were
Yeah.
keeping yourself in fight or flight.
Yeah.
And, of course, we're finding more about this in the research and that mind body connection and learning how to even live in your body
Hmm.
out of survival mode. That is such a significant transition, isn't it? Because you don't
Yeah.
even know what your body feels like out of trying to constantly troubleshoot or problem solve or stay on top of it or don't drop a ball. All these things we tell ourselves
Mhm.
that keeps our mind in fight or flight and really keeps our whole central nervous system in fight or flight. So
Yeah.
it's the process of shifting into a thrival mindset. Tell me a little bit more of how that started shifting for you.
Yeah, well, I took as I was building what I would be doing,
Mm-hmm.
and in the sense of how we operated, is I bootstrapped the company, so it was using some of our savings, using some of our retirement. So, but I had a runway, but I wanted to take time to create, my products and services that I would offer, and then also I got my own coach,
Mm-hmm.
and because I really needed, not only from a nourishment standpoint of the human side of me, but like
Mm-hmm.
an entrepreneurial type of like what's first and what's second,
Mm-hmm.
because I have so many ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And, even before I left my corporate job, I had already started my corporation papers, got all my URLs, all that fun stuff you
Mm-hmm.
do when you first start out. But
Mm-hmm.
like it was interesting because my last day was the 4th of the month. And on the 6th, which is what my incorporation papers are dated, I was
Mm-hmm.
already a company. So it was just like this, it was in motion. And
Mm-hmm.
when things you're meant to do
Mm-hmm.
are happening, like it comes with ease. And you're just kind of sitting there going, what is going on? Like I thought that
Mm-hmm.
would be harder. Or I thought I would need to do more here or there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think things just started to fall into place. And then I took a couple months to do that, to build, to do the coaching, and then kicked it off. So September to January is when I was working on myself and my products and services and exploring, learning, talking to a lot of people. And then I kicked off the consulting in January with
Mm-hmm.
a 4-month, runway at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to get out of my head in the sense that I could be looking for jobs and still having plan B, because I'm a plan B, C, D, E, F, G type
Yeah.
of person.
Yeah.
I needed to be all in on plan A. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't when I first started in January, because I was worried that it wasn't going to work,
Mm-hmm.
and what was going to happen if I wasn't successful. But I
Mm-hmm.
realized by doing interviews and working on resumes, and the interview
Mm-hmm.
process is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get an interview these days, like you go through, I remember my last one I had 17 interviews for.
Oh
That
my
is
goodness.
17. And
That's
so
amazing.
that's crazy. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, imagine the amount of time that takes. That's
Oh yeah.
17 hours right there. So and then prepping. So I had to be
Mm-hmm.
all in. So very quickly in January, I was all in on plan A,
Mm-hmm.
and then started working diligently on talking to people that I knew, having my
Mm-hmm.
list of, I call it my list of 15 people I knew when I first
Mm-hmm.
started,
Mm-hmm.
and just working towards my first client, which I ended up landing the last week of April, and my runway
Mm.
ended in May.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's no small feat. You say that very casually, but I know that had to feel really good.
Yeah, well, March was a very nervous month, right?
Yeah.
Because January,
Yeah.
okay, I'm new. February, okay, they're
Yeah.
still making a decision. March, no one's getting back to me,
Yeah.
like what's
Yeah.
happening. And to stay on course and to stay on plan A, I think was definitely something that was a little hard in month 3 of that dedication of like, am I
Right.
doing the right thing? But I think, like I said, belief in yourself and intentional like
Mm-hmm.
trust of that you're doing
Mm-hmm.
the right thing is so important.
Well, yeah, and even as you're talking, you said a phrase earlier, you were so tired all the way down to your bones, kind of, back into
Mm-hmm.
your skull and everything else. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a mental and a spiritual and emotional fatigue too. That's not just
Yeah.
a physical fatigue. And
It was empty. It was an
yeah,
empty tank in every tank.
yep. And we
Yeah.
feel like a shell of a person and we don't know how to get back to what we need to. And then being high responsibility, high achievers, we just try and do more.
Mhm.
So it requires a significant mind shift. And when I asked you the question, what did you do? You're like, well, I first stopped, I rest. And I just was smiling inside because, when I started my book, that's the first chapter is called Restorative Rest. And out of
Mhm.
18 chapters, first
Mhm.
one, I'm like, we're going to start here
Yeah.
because if you can't wrap your mind around restorative rest, which is mind, body, heart, spirit, it's a whole comprehensive rest. Well, there's the rest of those books just going to be a waste of your time. If you're
Right.
looking for just trying to figure out how do I stay in motion? How do I stay in motion? No, no, no. I'm going to be the voice that says pull over and rest. And it's
Mhm.
all my fingers pointing back. I had to learn this too the hard way through burnout and
Mhm.
everything else because you're like, I think I'm becoming a shell of a person. I don't even like who I'm becoming. And I know the
Right.
people around me are not enjoying who I'm becoming.
Yeah, if I don't
And
like me, how can anybody
yeah.
else like me?
And you know what? I got to do something about it. Like talk about responsibility, like
Yeah.
it starts shifting on you that you have to do something about it. And so give us an idea of like how you mentioned rest. What did rest look like for you? I'm always curious about that because rest looks so different for everyone else. And you've given yourself some restorative rest when the creativity starts coming back. So I tell my
Yeah.
clients all the time. So you were
Yeah.
doing it, but what did that look like for you?
Yeah, for me, it was I could easily go through a day at work, not eating the entire day,
Mm,
just drinking coffee and having a really high carb dinner and just
mm-hmm,
not being able to move
mm-hmm,
and getting back to work. So, like, it was kind of, for me, rest included kind of getting into healthier habits of
mm-hmm,
eating. And I think also with regard to moving. So, like being in the corporate world, which I'm not dissing at all. I mean, my
mm-hmm.
career was incredible there and
Yeah.
I learned so much from every institution I worked in. But like I had a vitamin D deficiency the entire part
Mm.
of my life because I never got outside. I didn't get enough sun.
Yeah.
I was always inside. And so it was really nice to get outside,
Yeah.
and to be able to get some vitamin D. It was interesting for me, like, to even go on little day trips around where I have lived for multiple years that I've never been to places that
Mm.
are literally within 1.5 to 2 hours from my home because I've never
Yeah.
had the time or priority to do it. Because, weekends will come and weekends get filled with lots of things. So
Yeah.
just being able to explore was part of resting for me. And then ultimately, like working toward a new schedule and a new routine. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the coolest part about being an entrepreneur is you're in charge of your time. One
Mm-hmm.
of the things that can really get you in trouble is you're in charge of your time. So like
Yeah.
you go from a very routinized
Yeah.
world where I easily
Mm-hmm.
was in meetings back to back,
Mm-hmm.
7 a.m. to 6 p.m., not a lot of time to rest, but it was very scheduled to a point
Mm-hmm.
of like you can do whatever you want. You can wake up when you
Mm-hmm.
want, go to sleep when you want. And so really making sure I had a schedule was
Mm.
important and that it wasn't one that went until 8 or 9 at night and,
Mm-hmm.
being able to sleep in a little, which was like till 8,
Mm-hmm.
so just, letting my body know like it could actually get in a routine of taking care of itself that way
Mm-hmm.
and starting to renew. So I think it was really some of the elements around wellness and
Mm-hmm.
mindset and then working towards the strategy because I think they all three work in tandem, but without your
Mm-hmm.
wellness, you don't have anything. And I'm still working on losing the weight that I gained during the time that I was kind
Mm-hmm.
of in my highest levels of stress, which doesn't
Mm-hmm.
happen overnight, so it's not going to come off
Mm-hmm.
overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Still working on being healthier that way, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely sleeping more than 2 hours at night.
Good.
Feeling more like myself and being able to do the things that I want to do. And I
Yeah.
think the important part for people to know too, and this, is like you doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean like if you go through burnout once and you learn from it, you won't do it again to yourself.
Right. Right.
So I have to
Yeah.
be very cognizant of the signs and things that come up for me again. Am I working
Mm-hmm.
at my desk till 10 o'clock at night? Am I seeing,
Mm-hmm.
am I getting out of my house? I mean, there was a time in December that I not literally left the house, like going outside, even my yard to walk a dog, to do anything from
Mm-hmm.
Sunday to Friday. I had stayed
Mm-hmm.
inside. And that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a problem.
Okay. That's not
Something's
normal.
not right there.
Yeah, a little too much work, right?
Yeah. Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
just making sure you're noticing the signs too, because it doesn't mean you're
Mm-hmm.
healed
Yeah.
forever and you wouldn't do it to yourself again.
I love that you said that, my company's about 15 years old and I've always joked, well, the hardest bosses I've ever worked for is me
Hmm.
because I drive, drive, drive. And I
Yeah.
had to really, I like that you brought up this idea of structure. I mean, something that's coming to my mind. I realized I couldn't do more than 3, maybe 4 calls at a time. And of course, this is a normal thing that probably normal people think of. But for those of us who are super high achievers, I was just doing
Yeah.
8 to 10 back to back, day after
Yep.
day after day. I'm going, why am I feel a little loopy?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't working in an environment where I had the structured breaks and all these other things. And I had to actually structure that for myself,
Hmm.
doing little, almost like mind games with myself, saying, you need to be done at a certain amount of time. And I would set the hour of every day where I would have a break. I would have to set the hour in my schedule. I literally have to put it on my calendar, even when I would end my day. And then I would have to do
Hmm.
really physical things like once you leave your office, you're not allowed to go back in,
Yeah.
and I work out of the home. So I was like,
Yeah.
just certain boundaries. I even lately, my latest boundary now is I got an old fashioned timepiece. I got
Nice.
so tired of my Apple Watch just pinging me. And I realized it was kind
Constantly.
of keeping me in fight or flight. And it
Yeah.
was keeping me too connected to my work. And
Hmm.
I just wanted to know the time once in a while.
Yeah.
That's all I
That's
wanted.
what it's for. That's a
Exactly.
watch.
Exactly. And when I set my phone down, I want to be able to set it down, but
Yeah.
I wasn't been able to set it down. And I still love my Apple Watch, with my
Yeah. We
exercise
love
and
all the
everything.
data, right? Yeah.
We do. But I
Yeah.
realized No, I need a break from that. And that was even just a physical boundary. It's like, when I switch watches, I'm just starting to step away from that. So,
Oh, I love that idea. Kind of like
yeah,
seeing taking this one off, putting them in workout
yeah,
mode. I want to know my blood pressure, but like when
yeah,
you're like at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, you don't need to know your BP. So like you just need to know it's time to go to bed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, for
So
those of us who are hard drivers, this is like, Leigh and I are trying to tell you some of our little secrets of what we do in our physical space to really help us in our mental and our emotional space.
yeah.
It's bigger than you realize to do some of these things. And like I said, when I walk out of my office and I try and be done around 4 p.m., I don't think I'm really that sharp after 3 p.m. anyway. So you're
Yeah,
welcome,
like when
clients.
someone wants a meeting at 4 o'clock on Friday, that's not the best time to do it.
It's not
Yeah.
going to work. I'm the freshest in the morning, and I'm
Yeah.
honestly freshest Monday through Tuesday. You'll notice I do a lot of my podcasts and everything I schedule Monday to Tuesday. So
Yeah.
it's learning even your rhythm of where you're freshest, where you want to offer your best, and then where you're done offering and how you want to set that up and what you want to engage with, and in which activities require a mental focus and which activities can help you check out, like going for a walk or just
Mhm.
sometimes I'll just go out and empty the dishwasher just to like do something
Do
different
some
and
laundry. That's
yeah,
my
do
thing.
some
I'm like
laundry.
doing
Yeah.
the laundry.
Be bold. Go out there, do laundry.
Yeah, it is bold to do laundry because you're like, wow, I should be working. Because that usually
Yeah.
comes up of like, oh, I shouldn't take this time, or I've
Yeah.
gotten better at that, but it
Yeah.
still creeps in.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, taking the watch off and having a different watch on. I know with one of my
Yeah.
clients, like her thing was like, I have to be at my desk at 7 a.m. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, who cares if you're there? Like, and I don't
Yeah.
mean that in a mean way, but
Yeah.
like who really cares if you're sitting at your desk at 7? And it was kind of like this moment, and I said, just put a piece of painter tape across your door because she
Yeah.
needed, her dog still needed to go in the room
Oh
and look
yeah.
out the window or whatever. I was like, just put a piece of painter tape, just the blue one. Did you see it and oh, it's not
Yeah.
time to go in yet. It's
Yeah.
8:30. And she
Oh,
ended
I
up
love that.
not even needing to use the piece of tape because in her mind it was there.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's just those small little things that we can do to manage
Yeah.
ourselves. And
Yeah.
that's really what it takes, I think. And I think the more that we're able to manage ourselves, we understand ourselves. Like you said,
Yeah.
what are best times and when do we work
Yes.
best and how do we want to work?
Yes.
And like I don't want to do a 7 a.m. phone call. That's just not
Yeah.
me. Did I
Yeah.
do them before? Absolutely. Did I figure it
Hmm.
out? Sure, but it wasn't really optimal,
Yeah.
and you
Wasn't
can't
fueling you. Hmm.
yeah, you can't burn the candle at both ends.
Right.
And you just can't. Ultimately, you're
Yeah.
going to pay the price somewhere.
Yeah, and you're right. And I think even the physical space, and I think again, our corporate offices provided these boundaries that we weren't even aware of. But it's
Mhm.
as we stepped out of some of that structure, learning how to replace some of that structure, and some of it you never liked in the first place. Like,
Right.
do what feels right for you. But I'm even noticing that I will only work now in my office because I was starting to work around the house. What was ruining my other rooms?
Yeah. Yeah, or I'm
you
not
know,
as good. Like when I work, I
yeah,
love our island in the kitchen, but I get
yeah,
very social down there,
yeah.
you know,
Serious.
and distracted. And so it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll walk the dog, I'll
Uh-huh.
go, do this, and I don't get stuff done. So like
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, just noticing your physical space. I set up an R&R room. There's no screens in there. It's my favorite books, and every time I go and sit in there, it's my time to replenish.
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that cool? So these are
Mhm.
just things that I had to cue myself as I started creating my own structure around me because the path I was on. So excited to be my own boss, so excited to be successful, so excited to do everything that I had learned in the business world and be able in the education realm that I worked in. I didn't I needed to create the structure I needed for me and create a new cadence. And that was super important for me. And I was also trying to practice what I preached to all my other
Mhm.
clients. I'd sometimes be talking to them going, oh, and you need to be doing this for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes they'll throw that back at you too, so you gotta be
Oh
careful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just careful when you write books. They
Students
love,
become the teachers.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
for
They'll
sure.
start quoting my books back to me. And I'm like, I said that? Wow, that
Yeah,
was, or sometimes they'll go, that was an amazing quote. And they're like, it's you, Heather. And I go, oh, I was on that day. I was really on.
exactly. Exactly.
I noticed that BOLD is an acronym. Can you speak a little bit about that? I love that when I was reading it in your bio.
Sure. So that's really part of my healing process too. So it's believe, own, learn, design, and
Mm,
really how I was working through my, figuring out myself, understanding what I was good at, understanding
mm-hmm,
my belief system. So it starts with our belief and our belief in ourselves and understanding
mm-hmm,
kind of where they came from
mm-hmm,
and understanding too that your beliefs can help you, they can harm
mm-hmm,
you, or they can hold you back. It's kind of three
mm,
ages. And so really doing a belief audit and figuring out kind of which ones are fueling me right now, which ones are holding me back, and where are they coming from, and really
Mm-hmm.
being open and honest and going through a process of uncovering them.
Mm.
Ownership really is about you realizing that you're in charge of your life. It isn't someone giving you a promotion or
Mm-hmm.
getting that raise or doing that thing. Like, you have to define what your values are and what you want in life, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're in charge of it. No one's going to save you. No one's going to make it
Mm.
happen. Sure, people will support you and some people will help you, but it's up
Mm-hmm.
to you. And sometimes that's a hard thing for people to take on, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it is, once they realize it, they realize they're in charge of their life. I think
Mm-hmm.
the other part of ownership for me, which was really important when I was going through my process of renewal and revival, was realizing I don't own it all. I don't
Mm.
have to. I had this
Mm-hmm.
mantle of responsibility and still have to
Mm-hmm.
fight it every now and then, of like, I'm in charge of making sure
Mm-hmm.
everything goes well, everyone's happy, everyone's
Mm-hmm.
safe, everyone's, fill in the blank. And
Mm-hmm.
it's impossible. And that's a really tough place to constantly be mentally. So I have
Mm-hmm.
to fight that every now and then. And then you
Mm-hmm.
apply that to your learning, which is the L,
Mm-hmm.
and that growth mindset about,
Mm-hmm.
the things that don't work are learnings, and,
Mm-hmm.
failures are where I've learned the very most in my life. But what do we
Mm-hmm.
do with them, and
Mm-hmm.
understand how you can apply them. And the D is really designing your life moving forward based on all those things about yourself and that
Mm-hmm.
you've done and experienced in your life, and design the life you were meant to live.
Oh, I love it. Well, yeah, our message is very similar,
Yeah.
which I find is so common about core truths, deep truths, universal truths. We're all saying the same thing. We package it different
Yeah.
ways, but it's so fun to hear the reflection in your work. And I'm thinking about the confidence section of my work,
Mhm.
all connected to our belief system. Our
Yeah.
confidence will ebb and flow depending on what we're really believing. And I love your term of taking an audit of our beliefs. We have to, and it's not just a one and done. You have to do it. It's a practice
Yeah.
of taking an audit of your beliefs. And one of the things I was surprised me, and it shouldn't surprise me, but it did. I thought I had mastered a lot of it, but as my success grew and everything grew, and I was moving into publishing my fourth book and everything, I was like, those old false pesky beliefs were starting to creep back up,
Yeah.
because managing a smaller world or smaller clientele and then moving into a larger, it was triggering some of those beliefs that, like, wait a minute, am I enough? Wait a minute, can I be doing this? Wait a minute, why are people hiring me? I mean, some of these old beliefs that I was thought, oh my goodness, those are like ancient. What are those coming back up for? And I thought, oh, I'm expanding. And so I
Yeah.
just try and normalize that shadow side of success sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think
Mm-hmm.
it isn't like you go through the bold framework or go through your book and you're
Mm-hmm.
done. Oh, check mark, I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm all good.
I've
You
arrived.
know,
I'm woke.
yeah, exactly. My beliefs aren't going to come back and get
Yeah.
to me again. I'm going to,
Yeah.
not take on more than I need to own, and
Yeah.
always use my learnings. We're human, so we make
Mhm.
mistakes, and, we grow. And like you said, something about evolving, or kind of,
Mhm.
getting to the next level. That's just
Mhm.
another place of not knowing, right?
Right.
So
Right.
like, as an entrepreneur in year 4, like, I'm feeling like I don't know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
sometimes, because I'm kind of, flexing into
Mhm.
different parts of a world
Mhm.
that I haven't done before. And so
Mhm.
it's just a constant, beginner's mindset, I guess.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
sometimes that's an uneasy place to be. But for
Yeah.
me, like, I've kind of made friends with it most
Mhm.
of the time. And
Yeah.
so I think I'm just continuing to do that, and figure that out.
I like that term, making friends with it. Yeah, and I think it's a
Mhm.
self-compassion to let yourself evolve and grow, but deal with all the uncomfortableness around it. We cannot, and I tell these people all the time, you cannot grow without being uncomfortable. It's just,
Mhm.
I'm sorry. If we're trying to circumnavigate it right now, you're going
Yeah.
to set yourself up for a very small, boring life. But if you
Yeah.
want to do great big things, you're going to have to make friends with your uncomfortableness. And the term I use is be comfortable with your uncomfortableness, because that's actually the catalyst for where we level up and how we grow.
Yeah. For sure, absolutely.
Hmm.
There is no growth without discomfort. So I
Yeah.
think, in that sense, I think in you have to realize that, and I think
Hmm.
you have to, start understanding kind of when your anxiety kicks in, or when your
Hmm.
fears kick in, or when, the words you
Hmm.
say to yourself, like, that aren't helping you, like,
Hmm.
where'd that come from? Oh,
Yeah.
that's something my mom said to me, or my
Yeah.
grandpa said that, or that's their life.
Yeah.
That's their fear, that's their uncertainty, or whatever it may be. And
Hmm.
then really not owning those, they're not yours to own,
Yeah.
So I
Hmm.
think figuring that out, and I guess that's part of getting older, is like, you
Hmm.
figure out what's yours,
Mm-hmm.
and what has not been yours probably all along.
Yeah, well
Uh,
said. And even as we deal with some of the relationships, what might be being put on you that you've probably accepted longer than you should? I mean, I deal with a
sure.
lot of people navigating shifting in relationships, whether it's family or personal or professional.
Hmm.
One of the aha moments for them is, I think this person's been putting this on me and I've been receiving it. And I go, yeah, you get to say something now. You get to do something
Yeah.
about it. And 9 times out of 10, people will go, oh, yeah, it's that 1% that, or 10%, I should say, that is like a little dysfunctional and wants to demand to control you. But the
Yeah.
majority of people, once they have the awareness and, you know better, you do better,
Yeah.
they
Exactly.
like it. But it is our responsibility to not just own our life, but own when we need to speak up and when we've evolved and when we're shifting and even to the point of, you know, that worked in our relationship last year or last week or last month because I was in this space, but here's where I am now. And I
Hmm.
know you'd want to know that because I know you really want to support me and I know you care about me. Having that kind of conversation is the whole next level to let not only ourself evolve, but let our relationships evolve.
Yeah, you're being bold for
Mm-hmm.
yourself,
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, it's advocating for yourself and understanding. Well, that's not mine. That's
Yeah.
yours. That
Right.
came from because I used to think a lot of the times that people would say, "Don't take it so personally," and that
Yeah.
would really tick me off because I'd be like, "Oh, it is personal. Like
Yeah.
this is my job. This is what I do. I'm working
Yeah.
really, really hard. How
Yeah.
can I not take it personal?"
Yeah.
But I think what they were meaning was it wasn't mine to own, right? And
Mm.
I was like someone's poor behavior. Well,
Yeah.
someone's going to think I did something and that's why they were
Yeah.
mad or whatever. It's like it got to that level. It was
Yeah.
just crazy. And so like for me
Yeah.
just being able to figure that out and
Yeah.
pretty quick, I'm a usually a pretty quick study. Like once I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, that wasn't mine," or "That is mine too."
Yeah.
Like, there's things I
Yeah.
should own. I think that really helped me kind of move through that process too with the framework, because I was just owning a whole bunch of things I
Yeah.
didn't own. And I was expecting someone else potentially to make it all better. Oh, if I got that job, if I get this promotion, if I get this raise, if I
Yeah.
get on this board, I'll prove everybody this X, Y, or Z. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, it's all good without those. And
Yeah.
there's a line in a song from the Ament Brothers, which is "I'm happier with nothing," and that
Mm.
came out around the same time that I had left, and it was just like
Mm-hmm.
this song, like spoke to me because it was like, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like I had nothing, but it was,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it was like a clean
Mm-hmm.
slate of like
Mm-hmm.
what was possible.
Oh yeah. That's
And so that
beautiful.
was really cool, to hear
Mm-hmm.
that line. I was like, yeah, I am happier. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a job, but like
Yeah.
that's the nothing part. But I'm like
Yeah.
figuring it out. I'm going to the next step.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to be successful.
Yeah. And I think it's I always say I'm a recovering codependent. And so that's the shadow side of someone who cares about
Mhm.
people, cares about being responsible, cares about being a positive influence in all our relationships. But sometimes we overcare and overprotect and overtake, overown. And I
Mhm.
think the word picture I use quite a bit for myself and also the clients I work with is this idea of meeting everyone at the 50-yard line.
Mhm.
I'm here on the field and I'm ready to play and I'm suited up and I'm ready to go, but you got to join me at the 50-yard line. It's not my job to carry the ball back and forth. It's not my job to um, abdicate my personal responsibility or power. It's my job to keep showing up at that 50-yard line and be fully present, but not go past it. And if I'm trying to go past it and overhelp you, that's when we start getting in trouble. And the same is
Yeah.
true. If I'm over here camping out of my end zone and not willing to join you at the 50-yard line, then I need to own that. But
Yeah.
having that awareness of what's mine to own, what a powerful question that is. And
Yeah.
it keeps us out of victim mode and blaming mode,
Yeah.
which really does abdicate all our personal power.
Mhm.
And the moment we start blaming or pointing fingers or moving into that victimization of, it's the world that's done me wrong, we actually are giving up all the personal power to show up at that 50-yard line and own how we're going to be in not only in our own personal life, but in the relationships that we live and lead in.
Yeah. And for me, it wasn't so much like someone's doing this to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was for me, it was like I'm gonna prove everybody wrong.
Yeah.
It was I'm
Yeah.
gonna do more. I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna, they'll see
Yeah.
and I knew I was really good at what I did. There was no
Yeah.
question about it. Like there was no logical way you could say I was bad at my job and didn't
Yeah.
create outcomes and have impact that was positive. But for some reason, something clicked off in my head with that logical side and was like, I needed to do more. I needed to prove more. I needed to take on, I needed to solve your problems, my problems,
Right.
everyone's problems. And, I think I got into this also that mantle of responsibility, which is a
Yeah.
negative for me of false negative belief that I'm responsible for everything.
Yeah.
And I'm
Oh,
not.
it's
And
dangerous. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
and that just wears you out. And
Yeah.
so I think that's where, I overused a positive thing, which is called responsibility, but I took
Right.
it to a place where I was going 99 using your analogy,
Yeah.
and anyone else just had to come one. Even
Yeah.
if I let you come one, sometimes I think you're not letting people actually own what they should own because you've already
Oh, yeah.
taken care of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear, well, it's just easier if I do it myself. That to me,
Yeah.
when I hear leaders say that all the time. It's a flag. You're
Mhm.
over taking responsibility and you're carrying that
Yeah. And
ball
there
down
could
the
be a
field.
variety of reasons for it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you
And you may be
rationalize it.
winning. You may be
Yeah.
winning. Like you're spiking
Yeah.
it. You're making a touchdown. But have you
Yeah.
noticed where your team's at?
Where are they?
Where
Yeah.
are they? And if they
They're
left the
not even at
field,
work because you did it
so
all.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So are you really winning? But there's so zero missile lock on that result of, getting the touchdown or whatever it is. But
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
definitely not a win. Yeah.
yeah,
So
hmm
it's, in hindsight, you see it, but when you're
yeah.
in it, like you're just kind of doing it. And
Oh
it
yeah, we've
just,
all done it. Yeah.
yeah. So I think for me, it was like
hmm
figuring that out and
hmm
understanding those signals and signs that come up. And,
hmm
I really think that was one of the biggest things when I came out was
hmm
that's not mine to own,
Yeah.
and just really,
hmm
keeping focused on what my
hmm
goals were, being very succinct about the steps, and
hmm
then getting at it, doing the work. You do
Yeah.
not succeed without doing the work too. I mean, that's
Yeah.
part of ownership too, is like you have to make
hmm
it happen.
Right.
So, someone's not, someone says very hard to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, it's very hard to be in the corporate world too. Like it's not an
hmm
easy day every day for
hmm
everybody that goes into the office. So I
hmm
think, from that perspective of like, but how do you define it and what are you trying to
hmm
accomplish and are doing what you need to do to move it forward?
Yeah. And I got to loop it back. We lose that perspective. We lose that clarity when we're pushing fast and hard.
Hmm.
One of the most important questions we can do when we slow down is what's mine to own?
Hmm.
That is such a powerful question that'll put you back in the driver's seat of your own car and
Hmm.
remember that you're driving your own car and maybe you handed it off to someone else, or maybe you got in this on the side seat there, or maybe you got locked in the trunk or you're strapped on the back dragging on and
Who
someone's
knows?
driving your vehicle, but you get back in the driver's seat. And how we do that is really asking that question, what's mine to own here? And
Hmm.
we can only do that when we're slowing down. We can't do that when we're running, 55, 85, 95 miles per hour running down the freeway.
No, because you just probably pick up more that way. At least that was my
Oh yeah.
experience. Yeah.
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 Well, and you've got a book coming out. Tell us a little bit about
Yes.
that at the end of this
Yeah,
year.
so excited about that. Really, it's about the framework and it's
hmm
about taking it to scale so that more people can understand the process.
Yeah.
So I talk about, what it means to be bold, and I think
hmm
some of the things we share in there, are the different definitions that people have, and coming up with your bold persona because it's
hmm
personal.
hmm
It's, what I define bold as, what you as. We may have some
hmm
similarities in there, but it's personal. So, how you choose to be bold in your life really is up to you. And then
hmm
also being able to understand that there's certain myths around being bold, that has to be big, it has to be loud,
hmm
and you're always confident. You're
hmm
just a risky person. It's none of those things. So
Yeah.
talking through that,
Yeah.
and then really getting into each part of the framework, believe, own, learn, design, and taking the reader through the process of what it is about, how
hmm
to unpack each of those, like your beliefs, doing a
hmm
belief audit, creating an ownership map,
hmm
looking at where your learnings have actually added value and where you might not have realized you should have learned something. Because there's
hmm
also pieces of us that we have something happen 10 times and we just think, oh, I just got to try harder. I'm not learning
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
us hard drivers sometimes don't learn the important lessons we need to for more historical context, do we?
Exactly, exactly. So it's kind of a little reminder for there, and then getting to the point where you're actually creating your own design map for your life. So really, the book
Mm,
takes you through the
love that.
framework, and the steps to it.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that coming out. I'll look forward to reading that, Lee. It just sounds like a
Thank you.
great book, and then you can help coach yourself through it too, which I always love putting tools in people's hands.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, as we wrap up, I guess I always like to leave our listeners with what's an encouragement you would give them if they've listened to some of this today and they want it, they want to be bold, they want to step in it, they want to own their life, but this is a lot of new stuff and they're almost feeling that sweaty palm feeling of I know this is truth, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to do about it. What's
Mhm.
one step they could take today?
Yeah, write it down.
Oh, I love that.
So I think that's a huge step in anyone kind of figuring out what to do
Mm-hmm.
next is even just writing it down, doing journaling, thinking about kind
Mm,
of, am I aligned?
yeah.
And then asking yourself that question and then writing
Mm-hmm.
down your answer that I feel I'm aligned in this, but I'm
Mm,
out of alignment here. And I
mm-hmm.
think that word for me is a better word than balance because I think you
Mm,
can stay in alignment longer than balance, honestly.
mm-hmm.
And I think, from the perspective of being able to understand kind of your current belief system of like,
Mm-hmm.
once you write it down, what can you work on and
Mm,
begin? Because I think the
mm-hmm.
hardest step truly is that first step
Mm-hmm.
because it takes courage, it takes bravery. It means
Mm-hmm.
something's got to change and you're stepping out of what may be comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
even though maybe it's dysfunctional or it's not the way that you want it, but it's comfortable because you know it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think you're going to step out of it. But I think just asking your question, am I in alignment? And then just see what comes out
Mm-hmm.
when you write it down.
Mm. I love that question because it syncs up with what I talk about and I call the four tires. And so I like the fact that you use the verb alignment. And I would say, yeah, are
Yeah.
your four tires aligned?
Hmm.
And the four tires being fulfillment, like what's fulfilling you, affirmation, where are you feeling affirmed, and then growth, where are you growing, and then of course achievement, where do you want to be achieving, and
Yeah.
making
Where you
sure those
going?
four tires are aligned. I think that syncs up so much of what you're saying.
Yeah. It's a nice analogy connection there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's
I love
for
my
sure.
metaphors and my word pictures. It just helps me remember
Yeah.
things.
Oh, 100%. I'm totally visual.
Which is why I loved your acronym. I'm like, oh, I love it with bold.
Yeah.
And it's such a popular word that at first I saw that I was like, oh yeah, everyone's talking about bold. Then I
Everybody's
saw,
bold, right?
yeah,
Even
right.
our chips are bold.
I
I
know.
I saw like the pellets for the Traeger, they're
Yeah.
bold now,
I
like everything's bold.
bold. Yeah, it was annoyingly so. But I thought, well, good for you for owning that and putting it in an acronym. And you broke it down and it made me stop and really engage with the word bold. And that's
Yeah.
a lot of why I wanted to bring on my show. I'm like, you've really put some thought into this. And more importantly, you've created a mindset, and it sounds like a life system to do some shifting. And
Mhm.
we can only do it when we've done it ourselves. And
Mhm.
so thank you for modeling that, Leigh. Thank you for living it and kind of practicing what you preach, so to speak, because
Yeah.
our world needs more examples of people modeling some of these significant gaps that they are leaping over and shifting and saying, I'm no longer going to live this kind of life. I don't know how I'm going to get to this other one, but I know there's a better one waiting for me. That's talk about bold. If we can start with that first thought, there's a better life waiting for me, and this isn't it. Right
Yeah.
there, that's really good, bold thinking. And Leigh and I are both cheering you on for that for
Yeah.
sure.
100%. You got this.
Yeah, you got this. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Leigh. Where can people find you?
Oh, my website's the best and has everything about what I do, who I am, kind of updates on the book and the things that we're doing. Really go to my website, leighburgess.com.
Perfect. All right. Cheering you guys on. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.